Imagine this. You are alone, in a cabin, deep in the woods, miles from the nearest town, no cell signal, no neighbors, just you and the trees and the silence. And then, a knock at the door. You open it. A man is standing there, smiling. He says he is the caretaker. He says he just came to check on things. You let him in. 'Cause why wouldn't you? He seems normal. He seems friendly. And then, later that night, you call the host just to say, "Thank you." And the host says something that turns your blood to ice. The host says, "I don't have a caretaker." This is the story of what happened next. Sarah and Tom Kellerman were a normal couple, early 30s, from Charlotte, North Carolina. Tom was an accountant. Sarah was a teacher. In October 2022, they booked a cabin getaway, just the two of them. A long weekend in the mountains. No work, no stress, no screens. Sarah found the cabin on a rental app. Blue Ridge Mountains, Western North Carolina. Private, remote, 5-star reviews. Nearest town was 22 miles away. No neighbors within 3 miles. They booked it for 3 nights, Friday to Monday. They had no idea those 3 nights would change them forever. They arrived Friday evening around 6 p.m. The drive up the mountain road was winding, narrow, no guardrails. When they finally pulled up to the cabin, Sarah gasped. It was stunning. Large log cabin, wraparound porch, stone fireplace. They let themselves in with the lockbox code. The cabin was warm, fully stocked, exactly as advertised. Tom started a fire. Sarah opened a bottle of wine. By 8 p.m., they were relaxed, happy, completely at ease. This was exactly what they needed. At 9:30 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Tom and Sarah looked at each other. They were 22 miles from the nearest town. Nobody knew they were here. Tom went to the door. He opened it. A man was standing on the porch, mid-50s, average build, heavy flannel shirt, work boots. He was smiling, calm, relaxed, like this was completely normal. "Evening," he said. "Sorry to bother you folks. I'm Gary. I take care of the property for Mr. Park. Just came to make sure everything was working okay." Tom relaxed immediately. Of course, a caretaker. That made perfect sense. "Everything's great," Tom said. Gary smiled wider. "Glad to hear it. Mind if I check the water pressure real quick? Had some issues with the pipes last week." Tom stepped aside. Gary came in. He checked under the kitchen sink, checked the bathroom faucet, made small talk about the weather, the hiking trails. Friendly, knowledgeable, completely normal. He was inside their cabin for 15 minutes. Then he said goodnight and left. Tom locked the door. Sarah said, "He seemed nice." Tom agreed. They finished their wine and went to bed. Saturday morning was perfect. They hiked, cooked breakfast, sat on the porch watching fog lift off the mountains. Tom felt more relaxed than he had in years. But by Saturday evening, something small kept nagging at him, something he couldn't place. He thought about it while Sarah was in the shower, and then he realized what it was. Gary had been in the cabin for 15 minutes, but he had only checked the sink for maybe 2 minutes. The rest of the time, he had just been standing in their living room, looking around. Tom told himself he was being paranoid. Gary was just friendly, but the feeling wouldn't go away. So he picked up his phone, 1 bar of signal. He found the listing and called the host. David Park answered on the 3rd ring. Tom said hello, said they were having a wonderful time, then mentioned casually, Your caretaker Gary stopped by last night. Really friendly guy." Silence. A long silence. Then David Park said, "I'm sorry." Tom frowned. "Your caretaker. Gary. He came by to check the pipes." Another silence. Longer this time. When David spoke again, his voice was different. Tight. Controlled. Careful. "Sir, I don't have a caretaker." Tom stood completely still in the middle of that cabin. The fire was crackling behind him. Sarah was still in the shower. He could hear the water running. David Park was still talking, saying something about calling the police, saying something about leaving immediately. Tom wasn't really hearing him anymore, because his brain had locked onto one thing. Gary had been inside this cabin for 15 minutes. He had walked through every room. He had seen the layout, the doors, the windows. He had seen where Sarah's purse was on the counter, and Tom had stood there and smiled and thanked him. Tom walked fast to the bathroom door. "Sarah," his voice was low, "get dressed right now." The shower turned off immediately. "Tom, what's wrong? We're leaving." Sarah came out in 60 seconds. She took one look at Tom's face and didn't ask questions. They packed in under 4 minutes. Tom kept his eyes on the windows while Sarah packed. The tree line outside was dark. The porch light cast a small circle of light. Beyond that, nothing but darkness. Tom kept thinking one thing. Gary had known they were here. 22 miles from town, down a winding mountain road. Nobody knew they were here, except Gary, who had stood in their living room and looked around, and then walked back into those trees. "Ready?" Sarah asked. "Ready," Tom said. He picked up his keys, and then the porch light went out. Tom and Sarah stood completely still in the sudden darkness. The only light now was from the fireplace, flickering, orange, casting long shadows. Tom moved to the window carefully. The string lights were still on, but the main porch light was off. It had been on 30 seconds ago. Tom looked at the tree line, then movement, just at the edge of the light, a shape standing still between 2 trees, watching the cabin. "Back door," Tom whispered. They moved fast through the kitchen. Tom opened the back door an inch, looked out, dark but clear. They slipped out into the cold night air, moved fast along the side of the cabin, to the car, got in, doors locked, engine on. Tom turned the headlights on. The porch was empty. The tree line was still. He reversed fast down the gravel drive, hit the mountain road, and didn't slow down until they reached the highway. Sarah exhaled slowly when they hit the highway. "Tom, I know," he said. Silence for a long moment. Then Sarah said quietly, "He was in our bedroom hallway." Tom looked at her. "When he was checking the bathroom faucet, he stood in the hallway. He looked into the bedroom. I thought he was just glancing around." "But Tom," she stopped. "What?" Tom said. "He looked at the bed," she whispered, "and he smiled." Tom called 911 from the highway. 2 deputies went to the cabin that night. They found no one on the property, but in the woodshed behind the cabin, a sleeping bag, a backpack, food supplies for several days. Someone had been living there for at least a week before Tom and Sarah had even arrived, and tucked behind the sleeping bag, a notebook. Inside were notes about the cabin, the layout, the doors, the windows, which locks were loose, which back door could be opened from outside, if you knew the trick. And at the back of the notebook, a list of dates, going back 8 months. Each date had initials next to it, different initials every time. Tom counted them slowly. 14 entries, 14 sets of guests. Gary had done this before, 14 times, and not once had anyone called the host to check. Not until Tom. Gary was never identified. The fingerprints matched no one in any database. He was never found. David Park sold the property 3 months later. Tom and Sarah have never rented a remote cabin again. Tom gave one interview to a podcast the following year. The host asked him one question. What do you think Gary was planning? Tom was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I don't know. And that's what keeps me up at night, not knowing, because whatever it was, we left before he could do it. But those 14 other couples, he stopped. We don't know if they all made it home. Some of them never called the host. Some of them just thought he was friendly, a nice caretaker, checking on things. He looked at the camera. I think about that every single day. Before you rent a remote cabin, call the host directly, a real phone call. And if anyone comes to your door, claiming to work for the property, call the host immediately, right then, while they are standing at your door. Because Gary counted on one thing. He counted on the fact that people are trusting, that people don't want to seem rude. So they open the door, and they step aside, and they say, sure, come on in. Tom and Sarah got lucky. Not everyone does. So the next time you are somewhere remote, and a stranger knocks on your door, remember this story, and make that phone call. Because the host might say everything is fine, or the host might say something that stops your heart. Something like, I don't have a caretaker.